Well, good morning, everybody. This is Matt Johnson here from the West Grey Virtual Museum. And this is the first podcast episode of the West Grey Virtual Museum. And it's something that I really hope to expand upon as we move forward with the West Grey Museum project, because I really think the podcasts are a great way to share some history stories for sure, and just a way that people can kind of actively listen to history stories while doing other things. So what the goal would be with the West Grey Virtual Museum podcast would be to talk about local history stories, and eventually it would be really great to have community members come on the podcast to talk about whatever interests them. If they want to come on and talk about their family farm, they want to talk about the history of their family business, if they want to talk about anything that interests them historically from the West Grey area, would be awesome if we could have those folks come on to do interviews and just sort of give us a little bit of background about what they're into, and we can all learn some really great history from West Grey. So that is my goal with the West Grey Museum podcast. And as you can see right now, the first episode of this podcast is being operated under my business podcast, which is Marathon of History. And this is simply because it costs money to produce podcasts and for the hosting service. And the West Grey Virtual Museum doesn't have any money yet. So I'm going to use my existing podcast format or hosting service, if you will, to produce the first few episodes until we get a little bit of financial backing for the museum. So having said that, I think that's going to be a great program to get the podcast going. And for this first one today, I think I'm just going to talk a little bit more about what sort of the vision is for the West Grey Virtual Museum. So the West Grey Virtual Museum sort of comes out of my experience in the museum field, in the heritage field, for the last, 14 years, 2011, I started building heritage displays for local museums, and that just sort of expanded into continuing building those heritage displays, but also taking on further roles at the museums and further roles with exhibitions. And these things included, presentations, community outreach, designing children's programming, all sorts of things like that. And then my business expanded from just the museum world into the private world, where I'm providing heritage services for businesses and individuals in various capacities. So I've been around the history world for quite a long time. I think I have as much experience as most people in physical museums. So I'm pretty confident that we can really do something great with the West Grey Virtual Museum. But it doesn't really matter what I do. As the director, I'm simply going to, organize things and sort of keep the museum heading in a certain direction, but I can't do it without community contributions. And it's just going to be so important that people from West Grey, whether you live in Durham, Neustadt, Ayton, Elmwood, or somewhere in between, we really need those contributions from the community to help keep our stories alive. And as I've mentioned, there's no, like they say sometimes, there's no right or wrong answer. There's no right or wrong contribution for the West Grey Virtual Museum. You could literally submit a story about yourself and we'll put it in the museum because you are a part of the West Grey history. And, that just extends to, if you have a business, if you have a farm, if you have a really cool old vehicle that you want to do a story on to put in the museum, if you're really interested in fish and you want to write a story about, the fish of West Grey, we'll put that under the natural history program. Or say you're into geology and you'd like to write a story about the rock formations in Durham's McGowan Falls, for example. We'll put that in. All these things are welcome in the West Grey Virtual Museum. And I can't stress enough that, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer. Everything's welcome. And it's a place to share history with like-minded people as we move forward and as we develop it. So the idea of the virtual museum sort of came from a necessity. There simply is no money for a physical museum. There's simply no money in West Grey's budget to do anything with heritage. And believe me, I've tried. I've submitted a few proposals that I thought were really quite good, and they just don't go anywhere. And that's nobody's fault. I know there's several councillors who have been very much behind my proposals. I have to say, it's not their fault. It's not the municipality's fault. You know, it's nobody's fault that there's no money for heritage, but it truly is just a reality of modern life in the municipality of West Grey. And, you know, quite obviously, infrastructure projects have to take priority over heritage projects. So, you know, the infrastructure things affect everyday life for West Grey citizens, and that's what our tax money goes towards, is to keep roads maintained, keep, bridges seem to be a big thing. And those are the types of things that the money has to go for. So I'm not saying there's no money in a begrudging way. I'm just saying there's no money available for a heritage, for a museum, for a heritage center in a realistic citizen of West Grey way. So, like I said, by no means a criticism, but I have submitted proposals and it just doesn't go anywhere. So I personally do not have the funds to create a West Grey physical museum. I did talk about, at one point in time, one of the proposals was to convert the old pump house by Tim Hortons in Durham into a West Grey Heritage Center. And I know it's not a very big building, but it certainly would be enough to create some really nice little displays and some heritage content, and sort of use that as the home base for West Grey Heritage. But again, that sort of went nowhere. There was some issues with making the building accessible, and just some other structural issues with the building, which is really too bad, because if you've been by the Pump House by Tim Hortons in Durham, it's a really, really cool old structure, and it would have been a great spot for a heritage center. But so that was a no-go. And there's a couple times that we've come up with other places that would be good, or other ideas for sharing heritage, and they just go nowhere. So instead of just giving up, the West Grey Virtual Museum is a good place to start, because who knows, down the road there might be some money available for a physical museum somewhere at some point, but not right now. So we'll start with a virtual museum. And virtual museums are something I didn't come up with. I didn't come up with this idea. It's not original to Matt Johnson. Virtual museums are part of almost every physical museum now, has a virtual exhibit content. And, there's even things like virtual war memorials. There's some of the Second and First World War cemeteries now have virtual memorials. It's something that is growing, and it makes a lot of sense, really, in the digital and age of internet. And I think it makes a lot of sense for West Grey. We have a large territory, and it's difficult to locate a physical museum sort of central to everybody. So a virtual museum is always going to be central to everybody. Everybody can access a virtual museum at any point in time, assuming you have the internet, which I think is everywhere in West Grey now. So obviously there's no issue there. And it's basically, what I see with it is it's going to be set up the same as a physical museum. So what that means is we're going to have permanent galleries. And what I see for the permanent galleries is they're going to be in the form of like a flip book, or some sort of digital, really nice digital full color archive. We don't want anything, any boring just text here. We want to have full pictures, full of great content. And for that permanent galleries, we're going to cover West Grey military history, West Grey natural history, West Grey's business history, and West Grey's social history. So that pretty much covers all topics. And of course, in those broad topics, we're going to break it down into, if we have to keep it organized, break it down into the various communities within West Grey. So we'll have, a Durham business section, an Eaton business section, a Newstead business section. So we'll really keep it as organized as we can, broken down. And that's going to be sort of the permanent archive. And I use the word archive loosely. It's going to be more of a collection of stories. It's not going to be a traditional archive. We're not gonna overcomplicate this like traditional archives. We don't need registration numbers and all these things. It's just going to be a very user-friendly, easy to navigate collection. Let's call it a collection instead of an archive of local stories. And the other part of the West Grey Virtual Museum that I see is also 3 semi-permanent or rotating galleries, like what a real, I use real in air quotes, real museum would have. And these would be the Canadian Gallery, where we can have exhibits about various Canadian history elements. So whether West Grey is directly involved or not, it will be in the Canadian Gallery. So that's where we might have things like, for example, like First World War. We might have an exhibit about Vimy Ridge, let's just say. And so that's the kind of thing that would go in the Canadian Gallery. And then we're going to have a Southwestern Ontario Gallery is what we're going to call it. And that's stories, again, not necessarily related to West Grey, but from our area. So, that might include some really great content from, for example, the Huron County Museum. We might have an exhibit in there about something that's in Goderich. It's not from West Grey, but it is local, and we do want to support our other local museums who are supporting us. And finally, the last one will be a West Grey rotating exhibit gallery. So a great example of that would be coming up. We have the Fall Fair at the end of the summer. I don't even want to think about the end of the summer, but we have the Fall Fair coming up. So a great example would be probably an agricultural exhibit that would run, maybe August, September, October kind of thing. So as you can see, there's going to be a spot for permanent content, but there's also going to be a spot where we try to keep content sort of flowing and keep content fresh. So it's, as you can see, it's going to be a lot of work. It's going to be a lot of organization, and I just simply can't do it alone. Like I say, I really need community contributions, and I just want everybody to know that, this isn't a environment where you need to be a university grad, published author to submit something. I don't want that. That's fine if somebody is, but I want some genuine content from West Grey folks. Don't worry if you have no writing experience, it's fine. We can work together. We'll get a nice article. We'll get a nice exhibit. Don't worry if you just took the photos with your cell phone. It's fine. We don't need professional photographers. We can work with everything to get content in. I just want this to be a very inclusive space where everybody feels welcome to share their story, their family story, or just a story that really has no connection to you, but it's something you're interested in. So that is the outline for the West Grey Virtual Museum. And we currently have the website up and running, and that's at westgreymuseum.ca. And there's a couple of stories uploaded there. I've had a bit of time just to upload the odd little thing that I have on West Grey from my local history magazine, Marathon of History magazine. But there's not much there, so I'm really, really, really looking for people to submit some content and help get this thing off the ground. And just like some outlines for some content. If say you want to submit a story about your business, please just send me all the relevant details, such as your business name, when it started, what you do, who your customers are, just some notes about your business, about your building, about your facilities. It can be as long or as short as you want, and just look at it as free advertising, because we'll promote the heck out of it when you send it in to me. So I do need a little bit more than just a link to a website or just your business name. The more you give me, the more I can put in, the more we can promote what you do. So that's sort of where we're going with that. And as far as things like sponsorship go, and it's no secret, every museum you need a bit of money to run, but you know what? Small business and people are tapped out. It's there's lots of really great, worthwhile charities out there and community groups, and they do amazing work in around West Grey. So I don't want to be taking away from the money that people give to those groups. West Grey Virtual Museum doesn't need a lot of money. For right now, I'm happy, sort of floating the museum along with my current hosting platforms and website platforms until maybe we do get a little bit of financial backing. So if you do own a business in the West Grey area, and if you'd be interested in a little bit of sponsorship, I would be more than happy to take that. Obviously, we have no money now, so even if you have $5 to donate, we're gonna quadruple our budget. So that would be incredible. And I am working on a business sponsorship plan on the website. But again, I'm not going to be actively pursuing businesses per se. I might mention it if I see a business owner out and about, but the last thing I want to do is take away from the other community groups that do such great work. And because of the format of the museum being a virtual museum, we can do it on a lot less budget than what other community groups need to do physical projects. So that is sort of the outline of the West Grey Museum, and I really encourage anybody who's listening to the podcast, if you're interested, please email me. My email is mjohnson, JOHNSON, at marathonofhistory.ca. Or if you want to follow the West Grey Virtual Museum on Facebook or Instagram, you can just message me there. That's completely fine. I'll get it and I'll try to reply right away or as soon as I possibly can. I like to try to get back to people as soon as we possibly can. So that's how to contact us. And please, if you follow us on Facebook or Instagram, please, every time you like a post or if you share it amongst your friends or all that helps. It really does help. I know it seems kind of silly, social media sometimes, but that is where business is done now. That is where people go for information. So really trying to work on establishing that social media presence for the West Grey Virtual Museum. And then hopefully we can grow everything from there. So I really appreciate taking the time to listen to this podcast about the West Grey Virtual Museum. And again, if you have any questions, please reach out. I'm here. And as I said, there's no rules, there's no standards here as far as, I want to hear everybody's story. I don't want to, we don't need to hear just select stories. Everybody is a part of history, so I want to hear everybody's story. So thank you very much, and I look forward to talking to you about the wonderful history of West Grey.